Jae-hwa Kim yawned as she looked at the computer screen. It was another long night at the Bohyunsan Optical Astronomy Observatory. She had been watching the stars for hours, hoping to find something new. Just as she was about to take a break, a strange sound came from her headphones. Beep, beep, beep. The sound was unlike anything she had heard before. It wasn't random noise from space. It had a pattern. Jae-hwa sat up straight, her tiredness forgotten. She called her coworker, Taeho. Taeho, come here. I think I've found something. Taeho rushed over. They listened to the beeps together, their eyes wide with excitement. It's not natural, Taeho said. It's too regular. Someone or something is sending this. Jae-hwa nodded. We need to tell the director. Within an hour, the observatory was buzzing with activity. Scientists from all over Korea were called in. They all agreed. This was a message from space, but what did it mean? As the sun rose, Jae-hwa's discovery was shared with observatories around the world. Soon, it was on every news channel. Breaking news. A possible message from alien life has been detected by Korean astronomers. People everywhere were talking about it. Some were excited, some were scared. World leaders called emergency meetings. In Seoul, President Min Seo-yoon sat at a large table with her advisors. They all looked worried. What do we know about this message? She asked. Defense Minister Sung Jin-cho spoke up. Not much, Madam President. Our best scientists are working on decoding it, but it's clear that it's artificial. Someone out there is trying to talk to us. Or warn us, said Foreign Minister Yeon Park. The room went quiet. Everyone was thinking the same thing. What if this wasn't friendly? Meanwhile, in New York, the United Nations building was in chaos. Representatives from every country were arguing about what to do. We should send a message back, said one. No, it's too dangerous, said another. In the middle of all this, a calm voice spoke up. It was Secretary General Kwon, a respected Korean diplomat. Friends, please, he said. This is a moment that will change human history forever. We must act wisely. I suggest we form a global team of our best scientists and leaders to handle this. Slowly, people started to agree. It was the best plan they had. Back in Korea, Jae-hwa was still at work. She hadn't slept in 2 days, but she couldn't stop. She felt responsible for what she had found. As she studied the message, she noticed something new. The beeps were changing. They were getting faster, more urgent. Everyone, listen, she shouted. The message is changing. The room fell silent as they all listened. Suddenly, the beeps stopped. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, a new sound filled the room. It was a voice, speaking in a language no one had ever heard before. Jae-hwa's hands shook as she recorded the voice. Whatever was out there, it wasn't just sending signals anymore. It was talking to them. As the voice message spread around the world, people reacted in different ways. Some prayed, some partied, some hid in their homes. But everyone knew that life would never be the same. In Washington, D.C., the President of the United States stood in front of a crowd of reporters. My fellow Americans and fellow citizens of Earth, he said, today we have proof that we are not alone in the universe. We don't know yet if this is a threat or an opportunity, but I promise you this, we will face it together as one human race. As night fell around the world, billions of people looked up at the stars. For the first time, they knew for sure that someone was looking back. In her observatory, Jae-hwa Kim finally allowed herself to rest. As she drifted off to sleep, she wondered what the aliens looked like, what they wanted. She hoped they were friendly. Little did she know, high above the Earth, the first Voxer ships were already preparing for their long journey. The message had been sent. Now, they were coming to see who had answered. 3 months had passed since Jae-hwa Kim discovered the alien message. The world had changed. People everywhere were watching the skies, waiting. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning, it happened. Huge ships appeared in the sky. They were bigger than anything humans had ever built. They were dark and smooth like giant black eggs floating above the cities. In New York, London, Beijing, and Seoul, people stopped and stared. Traffic halted. Phones came out to take pictures. The aliens had arrived. At first, there was no sound from the ships. They just hung there, silent and still. World leaders tried to talk to them. They sent radio messages, flashed lights, even used big signs. But the ships didn't answer. In Seoul, military officer Sung Min Park was at his desk when the alert came in. He rushed to the window and saw the massive ship hovering over the city. "This is not a drill," he said to his team. "Get ready for anything." All around the world, armies went on high alert. Guns were pointed at the sky. Fighter jets took off, circling the alien ships. But no one fired. They were all waiting, hoping for peace. Then, without warning, it started. Bright beams of light shot down from the ships. They hit buildings, roads, and parks. Where they touched, things exploded or melted away. Chaos broke out. People ran screaming through the streets. Cars crashed. Buildings crumbled. In Seoul, Sung Min Park jumped into action. He grabbed his radio and started giving orders. All units, defend the city. Get civilians to safety. Soldiers rushed out with guns and tanks. They fired at the ships, but their weapons seemed useless. The alien ships had some kind of shield. Nothing could touch them. Meanwhile, in her observatory, Jae Kim watched in horror. The alien message she had found had led to this. She felt responsible. "We have to do something," she said to her team. "Maybe we can find a way to talk to them, to stop this." But before they could try, a beam hit the observatory. The building shook. Jae and her team ran out just before it collapsed. All over the world, it was the same story. The aliens, who people now called the Voxer, were attacking every major city. In Washington, D.C., the president spoke to the nation from an underground bunker. "My fellow Americans, we are at war, and war unlike any we have ever faced. But we will not give up. We will fight. We will survive." Similar messages came from leaders around the world. Humanity was under attack, but it was not going to go down without a fight. In Seoul, Sung Min Park led a group of soldiers through the burning streets. They were trying to save as many people as they could. "Over here," he shouted, pointing to a group of scared civilians hiding in a shop. "We'll get you to safety." As they led the people away, a Voxer ship appeared overhead. Sung Min looked up at it, his face set with determination. "We're not done yet," he said. "We'll find a way to beat you." Just then, he saw something that gave him hope. A group of Korean jets flew towards the ship. They fired missiles that actually hit the ship. The alien shield flickered. "Did you see that?" Sung Min shouted to his team. "Their shields aren't perfect. We can hurt them." The news spread quickly. All over the world, humans started to fight back with new energy. They might be outgunned, but they weren't helpless. As night fell, the first day of the war ended. The Voxer ships pulled back, high into the sky. On the ground, cities were burning. But people were already starting to rebuild, to plan their defense. In what was left of her observatory, Jae Kim worked through the night. She was sure the answer to beating the Voxer was in their messages, if she could just understand them. Sung Min Park stood on a rooftop, watching the Voxer ships. "You thought we'd be easy to beat," he said quietly. "You were wrong. This is our home, and we'll defend it." As a new day dawned, humanity prepared for the fight of its life. The Voxer had started this war, but humans were determined to end it. 2 months had passed since the Voxer invasion began. The aliens thought they would win quickly, but they were wrong. Humans were tougher than they looked. In the ruins of Seoul, Yun Jadli walked through what used to be her school. Before the invasion, she was a teacher. Now she led one of the biggest resistance groups in Korea. "Careful, everyone," she said to her team. "We're looking for food and medicine. Stay quiet." As they searched, Yunji thought about how much had changed. The Voxer had destroyed cities and killed millions, but they hadn't broken the human spirit. All over the world, people like Yunji were fighting back. They hid in broken buildings and underground tunnels. They shared food and helped the sick, and they never stopped looking for ways to beat the aliens. Meanwhile, in a secret lab deep under the mountains, Sung Min Park watched as scientists worked on a captured Voxer weapon. "How's it going?" he asked the lead scientist, Dr. Jin. Dr. Jin looked up from her work. "Slowly, but we're making progress. Their technology is amazing, but we're starting to understand it." This was happening all over the world. Humans were learning from the Voxer technology. They were adapting it, making it their own. In what was left of her observatory, Jae-hwa Kim had a breakthrough. She had been studying the Voxer language day and night. "I've got it," she shouted, jumping up from her computer. "I can understand parts of their messages now." Her team gathered around, excited. Jae-hwa pointed to her screen. "Look here. They're talking about their plans. And, wait, what's this?" She leaned closer, her eyes wide. "They're worried. They didn't expect us to fight so hard. They thought we'd give up." This news spread quickly. It gave people hope. The Voxer weren't as strong as everyone thought. Back in Seoul, Yunji's team found a working radio. They turned it on and heard a message from the new Global Defense Council. "Attention all resistance groups. We are forming a worldwide alliance to fight the Voxer. Stand strong. Help is coming." Yunji smiled. It was the news they had been waiting for. In cities around the world, humans were adapting in amazing ways. In New York, people used old subway tunnels to move around safely. In London, they turned double-decker buses into mobile hospitals. The Voxer were confused. They had invaded many planets before, but they had never seen anything like this. Humans just wouldn't give up. One day, as Sung Min was checking on the weapon research, an alarm sounded. A Voxer ship had found their hidden base. "Everyone out," Sung Min shouted. "Grab what you can and run." As they escaped through secret tunnels, Sung Min made a decision. He turned to Dr. Jin. "We can't let them get our research. I'll stay behind and destroy it." Dr. Jin shook her head. "No, I have a better idea. Let's leave fake research. We'll make them think we're far behind, when really we're close to a breakthrough." Sung Min grinned. It was a brilliant plan. They quickly set up fake experiments and left misleading notes. When the Voxer broke in, they would find exactly what the humans wanted them to see. As Sung Min and Dr. Jin escaped, they heard the Voxer ships overhead. But instead of feeling scared, they felt hopeful. The aliens had fallen for their trick. In her hidden camp, Yunji was training new resistance fighters. She showed them how to move silently, how to hide, and how to fight. "Remember," she told them, "the Voxer are strong, but we have something they don't. We have the will to protect our home, our families. That makes us stronger than any weapon." The new fighters nodded, their faces set with determination. As night fell, humans all over the world continued their fight. In labs, scientists worked on new weapons. In hidden bases, soldiers planned their next moves. And in the streets, ordinary people helped each other survive. The Voxer had made a big mistake. They thought humans would be easy to beat. But now, they were facing a united Earth, full of people who refused to give up. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion, hope was growing. Humans were resilient, adaptable, and determined, and they were just getting started. 6 months had passed since the Voxer invasion began. The war had been hard, but humans were starting to fight back better than ever. And now, a big change was coming. In a secret lab under the mountains of Korea, a scientist named Hyun-woo Choi worked day and night. He hadn't slept much in weeks, but he didn't care. He was close to something big. "I think I've got it," Hyun-woo shouted, jumping up from his computer. His team gathered around, excited but confused. Hyunwoo pointed to his screen, showing the complex design. "Look here," he said. "We can use the Voxer's own technology against them. This device will shut down their ships." News of Hyunwoo's invention spread fast. Soon, Sungmin Park arrived at the lab to see it for himself. "Will it really work?" Sungmin asked, looking at the small device in Hyunwoo's hands. Hyunwoo nodded. "We tested it on the parts we took from their ships. It works. We just need to make it bigger." Sungmin smiled for the first time in months. "Then let's do it. It's time we showed the Voxer what humans can do." While Hyunwoo and his team worked on making more devices, Yeonji and her resistance fighters prepared for a big attack. Remember, Yeonji told her team, "We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone on Earth." In cities around the world, other resistance groups got ready too. They all knew this could be their big chance to turn the war around. Meanwhile, high above Earth, the Voxer were getting worried. Their leaders met on their biggest ship to talk about the war. "These humans are stronger than we thought," one Voxer said. "Maybe we should leave." But the Voxer commander shook his head. "No, we've come too far. We'll attack all their cities at once. They can't stop us all." Little did they know, the humans were ready for them. As the Voxer ships moved into position, Sungmin Park gave the order. "Now," he shouted into his radio. All at once, Hyunwoo's devices turned on. They sent out invisible waves that the humans couldn't see or feel, but the Voxer ships felt it right away. In the sky, the huge alien ships suddenly stopped. Their lights flickered and went out. Then, slowly, they started to fall. People everywhere watched in amazement as Voxer ships crashed into empty fields and oceans. In cities, resistance fighters cheered and hugged each other. But the war wasn't over yet. Some Voxer ships were too far away to be hit by the devices, and there were still alien soldiers on the ground. Yeonji led her team through the streets of Seoul, fighting the confused Voxer soldiers. "Keep going," she shouted. "We've got them on the run now." In New York, London, and other cities, it was the same. Humans fought with new energy, pushing the aliens back. Jaehwa Kim watched it all from her observatory. She sent messages to resistance groups, helping them find where the aliens were hiding. "I never thought we'd see this day," she said to her team. "We're really winning." As the sun set, the biggest battle yet was over. Humans had won their first big victory against the Voxer. In his lab, Hyunwoo Choi finally allowed himself to rest. "We did it," he said softly, smiling at his team. "But our work isn't done. We need to make more devices, better ones." Sungmin Park stood on a rooftop, watching the lights come back on in Seoul. He thought about all the people who had fought so hard to get to this point. "This is just the beginning," he said to himself. "We've shown the Voxer what we can do. Now we take the fight to them." As night fell, people around the world celebrated. They had been through so much, lost so many, but now, for the first time, they could see a future without the Voxer. A future where Earth was free again. The war wasn't over, but a new chapter was beginning. Humans had proved they were stronger than anyone thought, and they were ready to take back their world. A month had passed since humans won their first big victory against the Voxer. Now, it was time to take the fight to the stars. In a large hangar near Seoul, Ji-Soo Kang walked around a strange-looking spaceship. Before the war, she was an astronaut. Now she was about to become Earth's first space fighter pilot. "Is she ready?" Ji-Soo asked, patting the ship's side. Hyunwoo Choi nodded, smiling proudly. "She's ready. We used Voxer technology to make her faster and stronger than anything we've built before." The ship was a mix of human and alien parts. It looked weird, but it was humanity's best hope. "When do we leave?" Ji-Soo asked, eager to get started. "Tonight," said Sungmin Park, walking into the hangar. "We found the Voxer mothership. It's time to end this war." As Ji-Soo and her team got ready, People all over Earth prepared for the biggest attack yet. In what was left of New York, Yun Jili, who had traveled from Korea to help, led a group of fighters through the streets. They were hunting the last Voxer soldiers on the ground. Remember, Yunji told her team, we're the distraction. We keep the aliens busy while our ships attack from space. All around the world, it was the same. Humans fought hard, keeping the Voxers' attention on Earth. Meanwhile, high above the planet, Jisoo Kang and her fleet of new ships waited for the signal to attack. This is it, everyone, Jisoo said over the radio. Everything we fought for comes down to this. Let's make Earth proud. Suddenly, a huge ship appeared. It was bigger than a city, covered in strange lights. The Voxer mothership had arrived. Now, shouted Jisoo, and her fleet shot forward. The battle in space was like nothing anyone had seen before. Human ships, powered by Voxer technology, flew faster than ever. They shot beams of light that cut through the alien defenses, but the Voxer fought back hard. Their ships swarmed around the humans, firing strange weapons. On Earth, people watched the sky, seeing flashes of light from the space battle. Yunji and her team fought harder, inspired by the bravery of the space pilots. In her ship, Jisoo flew straight for the mothership. We need to take out their main power source, she told her team. Follow me in. Jisoo's ship dodged and weaved through the Voxer defenses. Behind her, other pilots followed, protecting her. Inside the secret lab on Earth, Hyun Woo Choi and his team worked frantically. They were trying to hack into the Voxer's computers. If we can shut down their systems, our ships will have a chance, Hyun Woo said, typing faster than ever before. Just as Jisoo's ship reached the mothership, Hyun Woo shouted in triumph, we're in, shutting down their shields now. In space, Jisoo saw the huge force field around the mothership flicker and die. This is our chance, she yelled. All ships, attack now. The human fleet fired everything they had at the Voxer mothership. Explosions lit up the sky like fireworks. On the ground, Yunji and her team cheered as they saw Voxer soldiers suddenly stop fighting. Without guidance from their mothership, the aliens were lost. Keep pushing, Yunji shouted. Victory is close. Back in space, Jisoo flew her ship right into the heart of the Voxer mothership. She found the main power room and took careful aim. This is for Earth, she said quietly, and fired. The explosion was huge. Jisoo barely escaped as the mothership began to break apart. All ships, get clear, she shouted. It's gonna blow. The human fleet raced away as the Voxer mothership exploded in a blinding flash of light. On Earth, people came out of hiding, looking up at the sky in wonder. Pieces of the alien ship burned up in the atmosphere, looking like shooting stars. In cities around the world, humans hugged each other and cheered. After so long, the war was finally over. Jisoo landed her ship back on Earth to a hero's welcome. As she stepped out, she saw Sung Min, Yunji, and Hyunwoo waiting for her. We did it, Jisoo said, smiling tiredly. We really did it. Sung Min nodded, looking proud. Yes, we did. But now the real work begins. We need to rebuild our world. As the sun set on the first day of peace, people everywhere began to think about the future. Earth had changed forever, but humans had proved just how strong they could be. The Voxer had underestimated humans, and now they faced defeat. But more than that, they had awakened a new spirit in humanity, a spirit ready to reach for the stars. A week had passed since the destruction of the Voxer mothership. People on Earth thought the war was over, but they were wrong. In the main square of Seoul, Sungmin Park stood in front of a big screen. He was talking to leaders from around the world. We've won a great victory, Sungmin said, but our job isn't done. There are still Voxer ships out there. Just then, alarms started to sound. People looked up at the sky in fear. Jae-hwa Kim's voice came over the speakers. Multiple Voxer ships detected. They're on their way to Earth. Sung Min's face turned serious. "This is it," he said. "The Voxer's last attack. Everyone, get ready." All over the world, people rushed to take shelter. Soldiers got into position. And in space, Jisoo Kang and her pilots prepared for another battle. "I thought we were done fighting," Jisoo said as she climbed into her ship. Yeon Jae-lee, now helping to coordinate the ground defense, replied, "The Voxer are desperate. This is their last chance." As the Voxer ships came closer, Earth got ready for the biggest fight yet. Hyun Woo Choi worked fast in his lab. "We need to make our anti-Voxer weapons stronger," he said to his team. "We have to stop all their ships at once." In the sky, the battle began. Jisoo and her team flew their ships bravely. They fought hard against the Voxer. "There are too many of them," one pilot shouted. "Don't give up," Jisoo yelled back. "Remember what we're fighting for." On the ground, things were just as tough. Voxer soldiers landed in cities all over the world. They fought with everything they had. In New York, Yeon Jae led a group of fighters through the streets. "Keep them away from the civilians," she shouted, firing her weapon. The fight was hard. For a moment, it looked like the Voxer might win. But then, something amazing happened. All over the world, ordinary people started to fight back. They used whatever they could find: sticks, rocks, old Voxer weapons. In London, a group of kids tricked Voxer soldiers into a trap. In Rio de Janeiro, soccer fans used their ball-kicking skills to knock out alien fighters. And in Tokyo, elderly people used martial arts to defend their homes. The Voxer were shocked. They had never seen anything like this before. Back in his lab, Hyunwoo finally finished his new weapon. "It's ready," he shouted. "Jisoo, can you hear me?" Up in space, Jisoo responded. "I hear you, Hyunwoo. What do you need?" "Get all our ships together," Hyunwoo said. "I'm going to send a signal that will shut down every Voxer ship at once." Jisoo quickly gave orders to her team. They flew into formation, ready for Hyunwoo's signal. On the ground, some men told everyone to be ready. "When the Voxer ships stop, that's our chance to end this war for good." Hyunwoo took a deep breath and pressed a button. A powerful wave of energy shot out from Earth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, all at once, every Voxer ship stopped working. They floated helplessly in space or fell from the sky. "Now," some men shouted, "take them down." All over Earth, humans attacked the helpless Voxer soldiers. In space, Jisoo and her team easily defeated the floating ships. The battle was fierce but quick. Soon, the last Voxer fighter surrendered. As the sun set, people came out of hiding. They looked around in amazement. They had won. The war was really over this time. Jisoo landed her ship and jumped out. She hugged Eunji and Sungmin. "We did it," she said, tears in her eyes. "We really did it." Hyunwoo joined them, looking tired but happy. "The Voxer underestimated us," he said. "They never stood a chance." As night fell, celebrations began all over the world. People danced in the streets, hugged strangers, and cried tears of joy. The war had been long and hard, but humans had shown just how strong they could be. They had faced the greatest threat in history and won. Now, as they looked at the stars, people didn't feel fear anymore. Instead, they felt excited. What other adventures waited for them out there in space? The Voxer had tried to conquer Earth. Instead, they had awakened a powerful new force in the galaxy: humanity, united and ready for anything. A year had passed since the final battle with the Voxer. Earth was changing fast. People everywhere were working hard to rebuild their world. In Seoul, Sungmin Park stood in front of a new building. It wasn't just any building. It was the first human Voxer Peace Center. "Today, we open a new chapter in our history," Sungmin said to the crowd. "We fought bravely against the Voxer. Now, we must be brave enough to make peace." Next to him stood a Voxer. It looked strange and alien, but its eyes showed sadness and hope. The Voxer spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. "We were wrong to attack your world. We have much to learn from humans." People clapped and cheered. It wasn't easy to forgive, but they knew it was the right thing to do. In her new lab, Jaehwa Kim worked with a team of human and Voxer scientists. They were studying the stars together. "Look at this," Jaehwa said, pointing to a screen. "There are so many worlds out there we could visit now." A Voxer scientist nodded. "Yes, and so much we can learn from each other." Meanwhile, in a busy spaceport, Ji-Soo Kang checked her new ship. It was better than anything she had flown during the war. "Ready for your first peaceful mission?" Yeon-jae asked, walking up to her. Ji-Soo smiled. "Ready as I'll ever be. I never thought I'd be flying to meet alien races as a friend." Yeon-jae laughed. "Things sure have changed. Who would have thought I'd go from fighting aliens to teaching them about human culture?" In cities all around the world, the signs of war were fading. New buildings rose up, mixing human and Voxer styles. In parks, human and Voxer children played together. But not everything was easy. Some people still didn't trust the Voxer, and some Voxer found it hard to understand humans. That's where Hyun-Woo Choi's new invention helped. He had created a special translator. It didn't just change words. It helped explain feelings and ideas. "This will bring our worlds closer together," Hyun-Woo said, demonstrating the device to a group of leaders. As Earth healed, humans started to look to the stars. They used Voxer technology to build new ships and stations in space. One day, Sung Min visited a school. Kids gathered around him, excited to hear stories about the war. "Mr. Park," one little girl asked, "do you think there are more aliens out there?" Sung Min smiled. "I'm sure there are. And now we're ready to meet them as explorers and friends." In orbit around Earth, a new space station was almost finished. It was huge, big enough for thousands of people. Ji-Soo floated inside the station, looking out a window at Earth below. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said. It was the Voxer ambassador. Ji-Soo nodded. "Yes, it is. I'm glad we can both enjoy this view now." The Voxer made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We came to conquer your world. Instead, you've conquered the stars." Back on Earth, Yeon-ji was teaching a class, but it wasn't a normal class. Half the students were human, half were young Voxer. "Today," Yeon-ji said, "we're going to learn about courage, human and Voxer courage." As she talked, the students listened closely. They were the future, a future where humans and aliens work together. In his office, Sung Min looked at a map of the galaxy. It was full of new places to explore. "We did it," he said softly. "We saved our world. And now, we're making it better." Just then, his phone rang. It was Ji-Soo calling from the space station. "Sung Min, you won't believe what we just found," she said, her voice excited. "There's a message from another alien race. They want to meet us." Sung Min smiled. The adventure wasn't over. It was just beginning. As night fell on Earth, people looked up at the stars. They weren't afraid anymore. The galaxy was full of wonders, and humanity was ready to explore them all. The Voxer had underestimated humans. They thought Earth would be easy to conquer. Instead, they had awakened a species ready to take its place among the stars. Earth had faced its greatest challenge and won. Now, united and strong, humanity looked to the future, a future brighter than anyone could have imagined.